Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. And I hope you can see the PowerPoint.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. So thank you all for taking time out. Good morning, good afternoon, maybe good evening if you're far away. So welcome to this B2C session. We will be covering basics of AMP script for email marketing. And AMP script is usually used in Marketing Cloud, and you can use it across different channels like email, web studio, your cloud pages, all that. So even for mobile, but we'll probably mostly cover about everything to do with email marketing today. Just the basic part of it. There's more advanced, which hopefully we can try to cover in future sessions. Okay. So a little about myself. For those of you who do not know me, but I guess everybody on the call probably already knows. So that's me. And today's agenda will cover about a little about personalization strings. Okay, AMP script, the basic syntax variables, and how do we use it, and then what are the few functions, most common functions that you would come across, when you start doing AMP script. Some best practices, and we will even look at a sample scenario of how you would use it in an actual email. Okay, and towards the end, I do have a special challenge for you guys that I would like you guys to participate in, and of course, there's prizes for that as well. So we'll talk about that towards the end of the call. Okay. Okay, so let's start with personalization strings. So if you've actually studied a little bit about email, then, or if you've been using Marketing Cloud for a while, you probably would have come across this term personalization strings. Uh, that is not AMP script. Okay, so personalization script primarily is it's about your subscriber attribute or a data extension field, or sometimes it's a system derived like attribute value that is available, which you can use for personalizing emails. Okay, but they're not very powerful. Certain small values that you need, you'll be able to get to. For instance, if you have their first name, last name, or some attribute that you have about the particular subscriber. Okay, or if it's like in a data extension field to the data extension that you're sending to. Okay, so it's quite useful. Like if you want to quickly show that information inside your HTML email, then it's pretty easy. That you can actually just put that in there. So the syntax for personalization string that you see here is it's percentage, and then the name of the attribute or the system derived attribute that whatever is provided by the documentation, you can use that. Okay, but AMP script is slightly more powerful. So there are things that you might want to sometimes do additional function on this, or you want to look up certain things, or you want to maybe the value returned by this one sometimes might be empty. You want to check the condition first. If it's empty, then only if it's not empty, then only show it. Otherwise, you want to replace it with some other value. So those kind of things cannot be done by personalization string. So that's where AMP script comes into play. It has more from a programming perspective, it has more power. Okay, so let me, as I explained, today I'll also try to show you hands-on in little bit of some of these uh, code that we have. So I'll use when you come into if you're new to AMP script, and if you want to start to learn as well, this is something that you can easily do. Go to your content builder, in your email studio. Okay, even directly, if you want to do it in content builder, you can go as well, as long as you don't want to send out the email. Okay, use email studio content only if you want to send out the email. Okay, but so you can go and just create a regular HTML email. Okay, I just created one sample one here. Okay, and I've actually put in an HTML block. This is an HTML block, and then they just want to edit it. So if I just go click edit it. So as you can see, this is a content block. I just pulled an HTML from there and just kept it. And then when I click on it, I can just edit it. So whatever I edit in this particular one will actually, when I go to the preview, I'll be able to preview it. So if I click here, and as long as you give a proper data extension. So I used a customer data extension that I have. For example, it's this one. It's an NTO customer. It's got certain fields like your customer ID, email, first name, few profile fields that I want to track as well. Okay, so for our demo purposes today, we will just use this as we go through the AMP script session. So as you can see, when I just do a preview, it will actually preview if there is any personalization or AMP script in that particular block that I just showed you earlier. It will actually preview that and show you that information. So this is very useful if you want to try out AMP script and learn it for the first time. just go ahead, create a sample email like this, and get a template, just put in an HTML block, and then just start typing the code in. So if I click on this code, this particular block here, pretty much it will be empty to begin with. Okay, so I've just typed in so a little bit of HTML here. I just said okay, this is a sample HTML email. Okay, and then in here I actually I inserted couple of personalization strings. So now this personalization string that you see here, first name and last name, okay, these are actually fields from this particular data extension. Okay, so you can even go in and you can actually search over here, if you want to add in additional ones, you can actually go here, personalization. Okay, so if you're actually looking for your any of your subscriber attributes, so these are the subscriber attributes. But if you want to any additional system attributes that are default over here, or if you want so the data extension that I am looking for right now is not here. So if I want to choose the new data source, I can go and actually choose that. So if I go here to data, NTO, and NTO customer, I click OK, so it will get populated. So if you go here, so you'll see now I have the NTO customer. So I already have first name and last name. Okay, if I wanted to bring in NTO member, if I click like that, say automatically it populates it for you. So it's very powerful. That if you by default, if you know if you're not able to recall which personalization field that I want from which data source, I can definitely go in and add that over here and then bring it into your HTML code. Okay, so for now I'll just take this out. So as you could see, how do you test this? I actually brought in this first name, last name, and I want to test it for these. I have 6 customers here, right? So if I want to see if this is working properly, after I edit it, I will just go click preview. So for those of you familiar with this, you probably have seen it before. So now you will see this is the first customer, and these are the data extension field values. Okay, so it's a good thing that you can preview from here. First name, is it coming correctly here? Okay, so as I cycle through each person here, you will see the names automatically will change. So that's your first level of personalization comes with your personalization strings. Okay, it's pretty useful. Now one thing you would have noticed is the names are coming as is, so if there is a caps over here, okay, it comes as is. Then sometimes you will have lowercase, so it's coming from the database, from the data extension that you stored in. Sometimes you might have come across things like this. So we are not able to in personalization string, you cannot directly change it and make it proper case and all that. Okay, so that is the beauty of AMP script. Later on we will see how to use a function to make sure all of these actually are shown in proper case. Proper case is when the first letter is capitalized for every word. Okay, the rest is small. So we'll see that when we look at a little bit into AMP script later. Okay, so we'll use this block here to show different code snippets as we go through the session that we want to try out, and then it's easy for you to learn as well once we look at the hands-on demo. Okay, so that is attribute strings, like I was saying. So then there are some system strings as well. Okay, so these are system defined, if you want to use in your particular email. So these are date. We have some date strings, some data strings. If you want to know the email name assigned or the email ID for that particular for that email. Okay, and so you can actually go through these some documentation. So if you want to know the email address of the specific subscriber, okay, that and you want to use it in a in the email you want to use that. This is one way of using. Especially it will come in useful when you're doing some lookup values, or when you're doing it in AMP script. Later on we will find out how to use some of these values. Okay, so there is one here called message context. This is sometimes useful, if you want to write some code based on a context where if it is somebody's viewing it as a send, or during a send, if you want some code to execute, or if it's a preview, I want to do something here, or if you're somebody is doing it as a view as a web page, etc. Right? So that is also useful. Okay. Now we'll just maybe I'll show you how to use one of these in your subject line. So xt long date is this format, right? So let me just show you here. Right, this take. So if I put in like this over here and xt long date, okay, click done, and when you go to preview, so it will automatically get replaced by today's date. This is coming from the server, so which is on central time. So it will give you the extra long date, like, that is on CST time zone. Okay. So pretty useful. Like if you want to, like, just use any of the personalization strings or system strings in your email. Okay. Okay. So now let me go back. So that's just in a nutshell about personalization strings. I would recommend you read that on a little bit more into the documentation. Like, you will understand, like, some of how to use some of these later on. So we'll go into AMP script. So that is our primary topic for today. Okay. So like I said, AMP script is like more powerful when you want to, like, more create more customization based on programming. Okay. So it is a proprietary language used within Marketing Cloud. You can use it within emails, landing pages, exclusion script, mobile, and all that. Okay. And the basic, there is two types of syntax for AMP script. It also has this percentage, but don't confuse that with the personalization string. Okay. So the personalization string, there is no block or there is no equal to. Okay. So in it is just the 2% signs, and then you have the field or attribute name within the percentage symbols. Okay. So you can either have a block, like you see here, like, within the block braces, you can have a set of code. Like, this is most of the time we use this, like, when you want to, like, do some logic. You want to declare a set of variables, you want to do some logic programming, everything, you want to write the code there and keep it. It's not for output display. Okay. And then later on, like, when you actually want to, like, display certain values in within the HTML, like, like this is an HTML code. You have a table, like, and I want to, like, display a particular variable over there, or an AMP script data, which probably has been defined in a block. Okay. So I can just output it. So for that one, it is like percentage equal to. So this is like, inline. It's called inline AMP script. The other one is called, like, block AMP script. Okay. So you need to know, like, there is the difference between the two. At the end of the day, like, everything inside it is AMP script. Like, the both of it will have the percentage signs. The block will have the block sign, and the inline will have the equal to sign between them. Okay. Okay, and AMP script, one main thing is, like, everything is case insensitive, unless and until you have a specific function that is actually referring, like, maybe we'll check later. Like, I think there's a couple of functions where it actually looks specifically for, based on case sensitive, keywords. Okay, and then if you want to, like, do the comments, you can use the // or star /*. Um, Quotes, strings, you can use, like, either the double quotes or the single quote. Both are probably, you can string, you can delimit it, but as long as you use one of them, don't confuse and, use both of them. Any one of them you can use. Also, like, AMP script is actually, like, procedurally processed. Okay. What it means is, like, first it will actually process pre-header. Okay. Then it will process the HTML body, then the text body, and the subject line. Okay. So if you have any AMP script that you have defined, like, in the HTML body. Okay. The beginning of the HTML body. Okay. Before the HTML body like loads, if you have defined it, like, it can be accessed in the pre-header. Okay. But if you actually, like, go and define that, like, in the text body or something like that, like, it's you cannot use it in your HTML or in the pre-header. Okay. So you have to always ensure, like, you understand this sequence, like, it's like, so subject line comes last. So most of the time, whatever you have actually, like, created in your HTML body, if you have created a variable, you can definitely use that in the subject line. Okay. So pre-header, HTML, text body, and then the subject line. That's the order in which you go. Couple of editors. There is, like, something, many of you, if you have worked with Salesforce development, you would definitely know Visual Studio Code. So let me just show you how Visual Studio Code looks like. So this is Visual Studio Code, and then there is a particular extension here called AMP script. Okay, AMP script 1.4.3 right now. So if you want to, like, edit AMP script, you can use this one. The good thing is, like, it will show you, like, the highlighting, as well as if you type in the function names, it will show you the value as well, like, so if you, it will show you all the properties and all that. So it's pretty useful, like, if you want to use this for development. But then you make sure, like, you save it as an .amp file, like you see here. Only then the highlighting will come correctly, and you can verify that at the bottom here as well. Okay. Now you cannot run it from here. You have to, like, copy paste it back to your interface that we saw here. So if I go click here, like, this is where you need to copy paste your AMP script code So the only problem is here there is no highlighter. So sometimes if you're debugging code and all that it's very difficult for you to make it out between the HTML and your AMP script code. So editing, I would always say is quite useful if you want to use it in VS Code or Sublime Text. Okay, so it's on this one. Okay, so now we look at variables. Okay, so for every programming language that you probably have come across, if you have done a little bit of programming, you definitely need variables that you want to store temporary data, right? So in AMP script, you will actually use a variable with the symbol. Okay, so you just have to declare using var. Okay, so you declare a variable using this var keyword. Okay, and then followed by the variable name that you want. Okay, and then you just setting in the variables is like initializing that to certain value. Like for instance, if I declare a var f name, and if I want to set first name as Mark, I can do this as well. Okay, so I can and the good thing about this is I don't have to it's very simplistic. So AMP script language is quite simplistic. They've not made it for a very very hardcore technical many of the functions are kind of are similar to Excel functions. So if people who have been doing marketing and then who knows quite a bit about Excel, it's very easy for them to pick it up. So they've not meant AMP script to be very complex. Okay, so you will see some of these the good features that they have is sometimes even if you don't do a var a var declaration, it will not give you an error. You can directly go and do a set f name equal to Mark, but it always recommend the best practice is you go and declare the variables. Okay, so but it will not give you an error if you don't do it. Then the other thing is you don't have to specify the data type. Okay, so it can store a number, date, boolean, string, whatever it is. So as you can see here, so when you declare it, I can keep on changing the value of if I first I stored it as a string, later on if I want to change it to an attribute value, or if I want to change it to a date, no issues. I can always change that by using the set keyword. Okay. Operators you will come across. It's equal to assign. For assignment is the equal to. Comparison operators, as you can see, is a double equal to. Not equal to is the exclamation with equal. Greater than, less than, equal to. All these are very straightforward. Not and or as well. Okay, so these are very common if you have seen some of your regular programming languages. You can use these if you come across. So if you want to use these along with functions, quite useful if you want to say if not empty or if not null so those kind of things you can actually use this. So okay, coming to couple of conditional flows. So this is definitely one that you will quite frequently might you might use, at least maybe partial. So there is uh, uh, the you can use the if conditional loop. So you have the over here, as you can see, if and a particular expression, then the then keyword, and then you have the else, and then else if is there as well. So if you have multiple else statements that you want to use, then it's if, then else if, else, and then end if. Okay, so make ensure it's probably you might be familiar with some of these when you have done coding, but if you have not, so this is the syntax that you do. For instance, in this particular case, it's actually checking if the points is greater than a particular value, then if it's greater than 10,000, you want to give it as platinum. If not, it will check the next level. If it's greater than 500, so then it's gold. Then 100, it's silver. Else bronze. So as soon as it meets one of it, if it is done, then that comes out. So it's just it's kind of like a case statement. You finish it and then you just break out of it. Okay, any questions so far on any of these?
Yeah, Shibu, when we are using else if, then we are using the block. So whenever we are going to use any if or any else if or any else, then we have to use the AMP block every time.
Yes. So it's not an inline thing, right? So you're not going to be using it for output. The inline one is primarily if you want to output some value there, so it has to be a function. So if not, you have to use it as a block, because this is kind of a block. It's actually supposed to be one big block, right? But then the thing is, you can actually stop it in between and bring in HTML. Okay, so if I want to show different HTML tags depending upon my AMP script condition, this is how you would do it. You would break your block. Okay, you put in the specific HTML that you want to display, and then you will continue evaluating your AMP script as you go through. So based on this, this is very useful if you want to selectively display a specific type of HTML content.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so let me go back to our earlier case. So now let's edit this a little bit and see whatever we've learned so far so that we can actually use it. So here we've actually still stuck with personalization string, right? So now we want to use a little bit of AMP script. So first we'll actually go ahead and create an AMP script block towards the top part here. Okay, so this is what I've done. So I've actually created two variables like first name, last name, and then I have set first name is equal to this and set last name is equal to the attribute group. These two are the actual how this is how you actually call a personalization string inside AMP script. Okay, so when you are actually calling earlier AMP script, you are actually using the percentage sign, right? Because now you're already inside this percentage of AMP script. You should not be using percentage again over here for the personalization string. Okay, so what you would ideally do is if it was single word, you can leave it as a single word. For instance, if it was just email, I would have just left it as email. Okay, but because there is two words to it, okay, I use a block. Okay, so this is important for you to know, how do you refer? Even if it is one word, it's always good to have that as a block, so you always know that it is referring to a personalization string or an attribute value. Okay, so this is something that you can do. And then now if I want to, yeah, sorry.
I have one question over here. When we are using personalization string, then we choose a data extension, and it may be possible can we have more than one data extension in personalization string. If
okay.
It is
no,
if
hold on. So let me correct you there. You have to, if you choose a data extension, it should be the one that you're going to send to.
Oh, okay. Got it. So first name will be from only the data extension on which we are going to send.
Yeah. So in this particular case, if I choose this as my data extension that I'm sending, then I can choose the fields from here. Okay. If I choose a field that is not in here, then it will give me an error.
Okay.
Okay.
So there is a compiler.
Correct. Yeah. So not when I try not here at send time, it will give me an error.
Okay. That's the time of send.
Yeah. Okay. So that one you have to be careful. So the other one is if you actually when you try to preview, you will immediately know it will not show you any value anyway. So that is one way to best to try it out first, so that you should do the testing properly and then figure out if it cannot find the field name, it will show you an error as well. Okay. Okay, so in this particular case, I'm right now instead of using this, I want to use AMP script. Okay, so here is one way that I can do it. What I will do is I will replace this. Okay, so now you can see this is a block. Okay, and this is inline, I've actually given inline here. Okay, I've actually given two inline statements, and it's actually calling this v is a function which I'll tell you later, it's just value of a variable. So it's calling the value of these two variables, and the values are being already set here in this AMP script block. Okay, so now it should give you the same output as what we saw earlier that we achieved through the personalization string. So let's quickly check that. It'll give you the same value here. Okay. So later we will see if you want to modify this and make that that proper case, how do you do that? Okay, so I'll leave that for now. So let's say now in this particular example here, okay, I wanted to give an additional comment to in the email, if I am a NTO member. Okay, so as you can see here, there is an NTO member field, right? So that's basically because they are a loyalty member. So some of them are loyalty members, some of them are not. Okay, so if they are a loyalty member, I want to add an additional message here for being a valuable customer for us. Okay, so let's see how do we do that. So I'm going to declare additional variable here called NTO member. Okay, and I'll set that NTO member to this is NTO member personalization string or the attribute value from the data. because this is a data extension that we are going to choose, right? So it'll fetch me the value of the current subscriber. So in the context of the current, if it's actually choosing this first current customer here, it'll return the value true. Okay, for the second true, for the third person be false. So based on this value, I want to show a particular another additional statement over here. Okay, so I'll write that using an if loop. So let me just put that here. So in here, when I do, I'm saying if this NTO member is true, so it's a Boolean value, right? So it's like automatically if NTO member, because it's returning either true or false. So if I don't have to write equal to true or false, automatically it will return me true or false. So if it is true, then I want it to be printing as thank you for being a valid NTO member. Okay, else I'm saying please register for NTO membership and avail special offers and end. So now you can see I've written HTML code in between these different AMP script blocks. Okay, so let's see how this actually comes into action. Okay, so let me go to the first customer here. So the first customer is an NTO member, so he gets thank you for being a valid NTO member, right? Second person is true as well. If you go to the third person, he is false. So automatically, do you see they are getting a different message? So this is how you can actually use this for customization. It's very useful. If you want to use the different, depending upon the values of the data extension or a personalization string, you can actually get that, and then you can use that to customize and show different output in your emails. Okay, so it'll change for every person that you have in the database. Okay, so let me go back to content. So that is on the conditional flow. Okay, then we actually come to looping. Okay, so this is another construct that we need to know in AMP script. Very simple, so you probably must have used for loops before. So in for loop, you would go directly, you will just say for a particular variable. Okay, and usually it be a counter, right? So it will be for I is equal to 1 to 10 or 1 to a particular variable, etc. If you want to do down counting, from 10 to 1, something like that, you can do down to also. Okay, and then with the end expression, then you do, and then whatever HTML content or if you have AMP script also, you can continue doing AMP script over there, and then it should end with next and that variable that you started with. Okay, for example, for I is equal to 1 to the particular number of rows that I want to do, I'm going to set some AMP script value, function here, and I'll say next type. So it will keep on doing it. So if RC is equal to 10, this will do it 10 times. Okay, so very straightforward, so you can use this, and it's very useful when you when you have this. Later on we will look at how to retrieve data from data extensions using a function, and then it will give you more than one row. Okay, so if I have more than one row, I need to loop through it, so for different each of the, how much, let's say I have 5 rows being returned as the row count. Okay, so for then I will actually take that as a row count, and I'll say for every row, go and retrieve that particular row and get the fields that I want, and then do some particular customization using that. Okay, any question on looping?
One question, Subbu. So, so increment or decrement is it automatically decides, right? If we
Correct.
give 1 to 10
Yep.
or 10 to 1, it automatically detects we have to decrement or increment based on
exactly that. Yeah, it is so it is not as flexible like you how we do in C or Java, where you say I plus plus, or so it doesn't do those kind of things, so if you want to skip from one next value, you want as 5, next value you want as 10, it will not take like that. It's by it'll go in ordinal, 1 to 10, 1 to 5, it'll take one by one. Okay. So
and instead of we have to give one explicitly, like we cannot use it dynamically by some field or no?
You can start so here you can have a different expression, like I said, any start expression. This is just an example that I gave. So if you want to start from 5 to 20, you can do that. From 100 to 1000, you can do no problem. So or
No,
I said
no. Actually, the thing is, so we have to give some value, whether it will 1, 5, anything, but we cannot pick it from any of the field or anything from the data extension.
we can. So what I'm saying is as long as that has a valid value that you can evaluate.
Okay.
So this can even be a variable.
Okay.
So that's why it says a start expression to an end expression.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Shibu, the variable has to be number only, or it can be any other?
Yeah, ideally number, like then only it can increment and go. Like I said, the variable does not have a data type. So if you have assigned a number to it, then it's easier for it to like evaluate. If you do text, it'll not evaluate correctly. Okay. Okay, so now we'll move into like some of the common functions that we have in this thing. So we'll cover few functions like date, string functions, utility functions, and the data extension functions. So some of these that you will actually come across quite a lot. Okay, so date, definitely quite a lot of you actually like work with many times like with date functions. So the most commonly used that we would actually like come across is the now function. Okay, so anytime you want to get the system time, date and time, this is what you would use. Keep in mind, the moment you use now, it is always going to get the CST server time zone, because you have our server sits in the CST time zone. Okay, and because of that, it will give you CST time, like US Central Time. Okay, so now and then there's something called get send time. So get send time is like used like if you want to like get the time at which the email job had sent or like started. Okay, now there is a difference between like so imagine the context of an email sent. So sometimes an email sent like it would be encompassing about like 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 emails, maybe even millions. Okay, so it might be like queued, and it might be starting to send like so maybe the if you're using this particular code in an email, for every email that is getting sent, like let's say it's getting invoked, so maybe the 10,000th email, okay, the time at which that is getting sent will be quite different from the first email that was sent out, because it is a queued up. Like it doesn't get, all of them will not get sent at the same time. So if you want a specific date and time at which that particular email to that particular subscriber got sent, you will use this get sent time. Okay. Now will always return you at that particular instance of when that email is calling, you will get like the current system time. Okay, so this is like when like if you want your the subscriber time is actually like going and getting like you will be able to get when that email send has happened. You can get that. Is for logging purposes and all that. This is quite useful. There is an extra parameter that you can give, like if you give like as true, now as true, it will this and the get send time will give you the start of the that particular job time, or if it's a triggered send, the job publish time, then meaning when it actually like it's called publish time, is like when the triggered or journeys are actually published. Okay, so these two is like will be same for all the subscribers in that email sent. Okay, but then if you use get send time, it will vary from subscriber to subscriber, because each email is being sent at a different instance. Okay, so keep that in mind. Like so this is like in I'm not sure like you will be using it quite a lot. This is like if you have any logging and all that you need to do, and you need like retrieve the exact time at which a particular email was sent, you can use that as well. Okay, most of the time you will come across like using this now function, like if you want to retrieve the current date and time, and then you want to format it and like use that in some like personalization, you can use the now function. Date, an additional couple of other date functions that you can think of is like if you want to add a date, like so if you have today's date and you want to add like the like one day to it, like, so there is different variables. If you add y, it is like 1 year will be added, month is like m, day, hour and minute, so you can just add that and automatically it will increment that for you. Okay, and date path is like if you want to like retrieve a specific part of a year, so if I want to like retrieve just the year part of it, it's quite useful. So let me just try and see if I can show you sample of this. So the good part of like the AMP script is like if you have access to your like like email like this, you can just simply type it over here and preview it and learn. Okay, so you don't have to like really send out an email. It's all about like just going and like trying out different functions and seeing what they return. So as you can see, I the first one where I had added like 1 day. So let me go back and show you the function first. Sorry. So in the first one, I added date now. Sorry, date add, and to now I added 1 day. Okay, and then to the second one, I was saying the current year is like date part. Like of now, I want to retrieve the year part, like only the y part. Okay, so when I did that here, keep in mind right now it is central time, so like it is actually looking at 8:25, so it just went past midnight in central time in over there in the US. So 5:23 is today, and then 5:24 midnight is like one day from there. Okay, and the current year, we wanted to like take the year out, so it gave you 2020 correctly. Okay? Very simple. Okay. You can look at the documentation. So whenever I actually show you some of these examples, okay, let me go back here 1 second. So there is two references that you need to like know. Okay, so one is your Salesforce documentation, which is like if you go check AmpScript Marketing Cloud documentation, it will give you the entire programmatic content on AmpScript. It also has server-side JavaScript and few other like function, programming language, GTL and all that. But AmpScript, you will find most of the references here. This function reference is quite useful. It will show you like based on the type of like functions that you want to retrieve, you can actually go and click on it, and it will give you the details. Okay, but there is also one more better one, which is called the AmpScript guide. So this was actually separately written by a couple of our MVPs, Elliot and Adam Briggs. So they've actually given this out. This is again a paid site. So if you want the full reference of everything, you need to subscribe to it. But there is still quite a bit of useful data here. Like at least the basic details about each of these functions are available, but then any advanced scenarios that like you want to like look at, it will probably not be open. So for instance, if I come down, let's see, this one has, if not, let's see, where is data extension functions? Yeah, so if you come across like something like this, what it means is you need to subscribe. Okay, so if you subscribe to it, they will have additional content over here which only subscribed users can see. But there is definitely like basic content you can still get, like so if there is anything that you do not find here, always you can go back and check here. There are quite a lot of good examples over here that you can actually look at and then learn from them. You can try it out in your email. Okay. And this one is definitely in the documentation in Salesforce, quite useful. Because when you work with date functions, you need to know, you always wonder like, okay, what is the format value that I need to provide if I want to get the correct format in which I want the specific year or the month or the date, etc. Right? So this is quite useful how you want to retrieve it. There is the month field M is slightly it behaves very differently, like when you not like how you see it here. So what based on the experimentation and like on some of the documentation, what I found is like if you use M in the functions, it will give you like the abbreviated the full name of the month along with the 2-digit date. Okay, but if you use %m, it will give you the specific numeric value of that month. Okay, so be careful on how you actually want it. So sometimes you might be expecting the value 5 for May, but if you just use it as M, so but you might be getting the value as May 23rd, right, today's date. So please be aware of certain caveats to certain functions are behave slightly weirdly. You need to go and find out what is the correct usage for those. The documentation will have that so you can check the documentation on this. Formatting, definitely that you will come across quite a lot. So the format function you can use for date, numbers, currency, and all that. So most of the time you will use it for format date. For example, if I want to format today's date to this particular format, I can just go ahead and specify that. The format date is a specific separate function just for date. Okay, now this one is if you specify if you want to get it as a short, long, ISO or RFC format, and if you want it or a particular countries the way that you want to do it as particular countries format. For instance, UK format and India format and all, we use the date first followed by the month and the year, right? But the US is the other way around. They use the month and then the date and the year, right? So if you want to convert the two, it's always better to use the format date, okay, and by country. For example, let me show you a value. can show an example code how it looks like. So what I've done is here I've actually written two statements. Like one is the format date, and I've actually specified the culture code as US. And I want to like show the same, that today's date. Now I'm actually going to format that, and I'm using the short date format. Short date format does not give you the time; it will only give you the date like this. Okay. So if I look at like and I'm specifying the culture code as ENUS, and the second one I'm just changing it to ENGB for UK, right? So let's see what the output would be. So today is like 23rd May 2020. So as you can see, US format, like we said, it always starts with the month, but then in the UK format, it will start with the day or the date. So quite useful, like in certain scenarios, if depending upon, let's say you are localized and you want to like send it to that particular region, and you want to use that particular region's like date formatting, this is quite useful. Okay. So this culture code you can get online, like so what is the different types of codes by country, you can go and click and you can find out, like so for French it will be FR-FR. So each country has a different code. Okay. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, coming to some more interesting functions. So this is string functions. Like you can see concat, if you want to like concatenate multiple strings, okay, you can go ahead and just say concat, like A, B, C, and number of strings you can actually go ahead and concatenate. There is no limit to it. So like in this particular case, it will return ABC. Okay. Length, like most like programming that we have seen, if you have a particular string and if you want to get the length of that string, you can just call the function length. The upper lower proper case, like I said, so if it's uppercase, lowercase, and proper case, you can see each of these examples. Uppercase, as you can see, always all will be caps. Lower, everything will be lower. Proper case, the first letter of every word will be capitalized, the remaining will be like small letters. So this is something quite useful that we want to use for our first name, last name, right? So it's quite useful. Replace over here. So there's two functions for replace. One is replace and one is replace list. So I'll quickly explain the difference between the two. Do not get confused. The replace one, it's like just like our normal like in Java and all, have you seen? The first one will be the main big string where you have to go and search and replace something. Okay. So in this particular case, I'm saying this is the string that I want to change. Okay. And in that, I want to see the second parameter that we will be looking at is like, okay, what string or what set of characters do I want to like search in the big string? Okay. And then the third one will be, what is the replacement string that I need to put it over there? Okay. So in this particular case, if I say search for 2007 and replace it by 2008, okay. So that is how I use this particular function for replace. Now, when I come to replace list, this is useful when there are multiple characters in a particular or set of characters in the first big string, okay, which I want to replace with a single particular string set. Okay. So in for instance, if I say like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, if I have that, then the second parameter here is not going to be like the string that I need to search. Okay. Here it is going to be the replacement string. For instance, X is the replacement string. So immediately after the big string, I'm going to say I'm going to be replacing certain characters in this particular string with X. And then I will start giving the list of all the characters that it needs to like search over here and replace with X. Okay, so for if I say A, C, E, G, it will replace all of those, each of those character sets over here inside this with this parameter called X here. Okay, so slightly different here in this replace, the replacement string is in the third one. Here the replacement string is in the parameter 2. So don't get confused between the two. Make sure you know the usage correctly. Trim is pretty straightforward. If you have left and right, like spaces, it will actually just trim it and then give you the without the spaces, it will add that and give it to you. Okay. Let me quickly see if we can look at how to use this proper case. So, here we actually okay, so I actually made it now proper case here. Okay, so earlier when we were actually looking at like the first name, last name, like it was not working properly. Like some of them were like lower and some of them were like uppercase and all that, right? So and then here, if you notice, it is like it's two different inline one. I probably want to like change that into a single function using concat. So this is also going to be changed. What I can do is I can say concat f name space last name. So I can just do that in a single function as well. I always don't have to use v. I can just use any function if it's like an inline. As long as the function returns a value, it in the inline will work fine. Okay. So if I go here, okay, so the value is coming. Okay, so now you see the second earlier, if you see here, the first name last name is actually lowercase, but then this was actually correctly taking it as proper case. Okay, and then there was one more person who had a all caps. See that person, so all caps, it has changed it correctly as well. Okay, so quite useful if you want to have a consistent behavior in outputting text as proper case. Okay, so let's go back. You take out all the unwanted code so you can customize. If okay, so that is on string functions. Utility functions. So this is also quite something that you will come across. So V is definitely that you have seen in action slightly earlier. Like this is whenever you want to output the value of any variable. Okay, so it's like value of. Okay, and especially it is quite useful when you want to do it in an inline one. It's not within a block. You will not use it. It's mostly in an inline block. Sorry, inline AMP script. You want to output the value of a particular variable. You use the V function. Okay. Attribute value is somewhat similar to V. The only thing is it is used when that particular variable has an attribute that is being returned from a data extension or a subscriber list. Okay. The good thing about it is it will return null if the attribute is not available in the context. The other one if there is a problem, it will show an error. Okay, if there is no value set to it, it might show an error if that attribute is not available. It's not that it's empty. If it's empty, it will show null. But if that attribute that you are saying is referring to a particular field, in this particular case, if first name is not available there, okay, if you use V, it will actually show an error during that email sending. If you use the function attribute value, okay, then even if that particular field does not exist, okay, it'll come back and show null, and it will not break the email. Okay, so look at how you are going to use attribute values versus V in your email based on the use case. You can check that and use that. Empty is pretty straightforward. Okay, so that is the wrong function that I have here. So if okay, actually it's concat. So if empty is here, actually this one should be concat. Wait, so, 1 second, guys. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So if I use empty, this is if I want to check a particular field is empty, or a variable is empty, and then there is no value in that, then I can actually display a different value. If not, I can go ahead and display the same variable that has a value in it. So this is using the function empty. If I want to check if it's being returned as there's no value in it, I can use that for conditional as well. Okay. IIF is something that you probably must have seen in Excel. If whenever you have a condition first, evaluate that condition. If it is true, return the first value. If not, return the second value, right? So this is that particular function. It's called IIF. Here it is checking if the first string is empty, then return customer. If not, return the first name actual variable in that value. Any questions on the string and the utility functions? Okay, so let's move on to the math functions. So this is quite useful, if you have any mathematical calculations that you need to do. Keep in mind that these can only take in two parameters at a time. Okay, you cannot concat, you cannot give 3-4 parameters and all that and do addition. It will not work that way. Okay, for instance, if I have two variables x and y and 20 and 6, add, if I say 20 and 6, it will give you 26. Subtract will give you 14. Multiply, as you can see, it will do all those. Divide, it will give you the quotient, and then the mod will actually give you the remainder. Okay, so keep that in mind. It doesn't have to be a perfect division over here. The random one, if you want to like select a random number within like between a high and a low parameter set, it includes these two numbers as well. So if I want to get a number between 1 and 100, you can just specify that as well. Okay, so keep in mind most of these math functions, like they take only two parameters. Okay, now it's not that you only have these particular functions available. Like please do check the documentation, like in date functions and all. There might be a few additional ones that I did not get time to go through, so you can go and refer to those as well, like under date functions, the utility functions and all that, format functions. There are a few more, like format currency, format number and all that. Pretty straightforward. I was just looking at, I'm just trying to show you some of the common ones that you may come across. Okay. Okay, so now to more exciting ones that you will use, especially when you have data that you want to bring in from your data extensions. So in this particular case, we'll first look at a lookup function. Okay, so those of you who have worked with Excel, and if you have done VLOOKUP, this is quite similar to that. Okay, so what we have is like if we have a data extension like this, okay, that I have here for a sample. I want to retrieve a single field from the data extension, okay, based on some condition. Okay, so that is what lookup is for. So always keep in mind, lookup will always return a single field, not multiple rows, not single row, multiple fields. No, just a single field. That's all what lookup it can do. Okay, so how it looks at is by mandatory you need to specify four things. Okay, one is which data extension should I go and check in. Okay, so let's say this is the customer DE data extension. Okay, then the second parameter is like, okay, what do I need to retrieve and bring back? Okay, so the field that you want to bring back. Okay, so if I tell, let's say I wanted the first name of a person, okay, based on some condition from this particular data extension. So I'll say retrieve first name. Okay, now the where condition. Okay, the where condition is the third parameter. So which field should I use for the where condition? I'm going to say I want the subscriber key as a where condition. And then I will say what is the value for that to be passed to the where condition. So this is again a system attribute like subscriber key. I can pass that and say, okay, subscriber key of the current contact when I pass. It will give if it is the value came as 5497, then it will return me the first name Zusi. Okay, if the value came as if currently I'm in the context of this particular send of this particular subscriber, it will take this subscriber and it will give me the value Doug. Okay, so based on the evaluation that happens here, it will go fetch the value for that particular field in that database for the row that matches this, and then bring that to you. Okay, now keep in mind, if you have more than one row that matches this particular condition, okay, you cannot confirm that it is always going to take the first row. Okay, the documentation says it is inconsistent. So as far as possible, try to make sure your where condition can uniquely identify a particular row from which that particular field will be taken. Okay, so sometimes it could be a primary key. Like most of the time, if you have a primary key and then you can use that, or if you have multiple where conditions, like I said, like I show here, you can continue to give additional pairs of where clauses. For instance, if I wanted to give email address and the email address value, I can give that also. Like I can continue to give multiple things over here. But if you can uniquely identify using the subscriber key, then that is enough. So that you can give that as well. Okay. Any question on the lookup function? Okay, I will try to show using an example. Give me 1 second. Okay, so we have a table here called the abandoned cart. So abandoned cart, like you guys know, or some of you might know, is like when somebody comes to your site and then they shop. Sometimes they leave a particular product in your cart and then they will not shop and then they'll go. Okay, it's like okay, they will probably say, okay, I've not decided to buy it. I might come back and do it later. So they just save it for later. Okay, so in that particular case, we get the abandoned cart data, so we get, so this is some data that is actually that we have captured for some of our NTO customers, and it is actually having the product code called SKU. Okay, and then I have a product table. Okay, based on the SKU ID, tell okay, what was that particular product that they are actually all the products that I have using the SKU code, I have that. Okay, so I want to first identify what is the particular product that was actually selected by this particular each customer, and that they had left it in their cart. Okay, I want to first retrieve that. Okay, so if I want to do that, like, this is, and I have a customer ID here as well, like, so I know, like, how to match particular, the where clause will be like, where the particular customer is this value. Okay. And if I'm right now in the context of that customer, show me his particular SKU value. So that is what we are going to try and retrieve. Okay. So for that, we first will need to, like, write M script here. So we'll declare a variable called SKU. Okay. And then we've written the value here, like, using the function, we will call that particular data extension. Okay. It's abandoned cart audience NTO. Okay. And then the second parameter, like I said, is what is the data that you want retrieved. Okay. So you want to return back the SKU value, right? So you want this value in this column to be returned. And then we are going to see what is going to be the where clause. The where clause is where the unique ID of the customer, which is the customer ID field. Okay. So this is the column customer ID. Okay. And then it will show what value do you want to be like, equated to that where clause. So when I'm sending this particular email, each person will have a customer ID, right? So if I'm sending to the first person's customer ID will come here, and that is actually a data extension field, right? So automatically that data, it is the NTO customer. This is the data, that the data extension that I'm sending to. So it will start cycling through each of these customers as I send the emails. The first customer, this will be the customer ID. Second person, this will be the ID, right? So it will use this value here and then start equating to this and then check, like, okay, for this particular customer, is there a record in this database? If so, return the SKU value. Okay. So we'll see that, like, as we try looking through this. And now just by putting this doesn't mean that I can see the SKU value. I only written the logic that it is being set into this queue. Now I need to output that somewhere so I can review that data, right? So I'll write a small code here for that. So what I've done is I've actually written here output is an inline showing SKU, and I want to, like, just output that value SKU here. Okay, because it is already being set in the block. I'll just try to see if I can see the value here. Okay. So now let's move to the preview. And as you can see, this particular data expression that we are viewing, okay, is this NTO customer. There is no SKU value here. Okay, if there is a SKU value here, I could just use a personalization string and I can bring that value here, right? The data is actually in a different table. It's in the abandoned cart audience, and it is related to this table using the customer ID. So this is how, if you want to, like, bring in the data, like, without using a filter or like any other queries, like, if you want to, like, just look up and bring that value, you can use this particular lookup function in AmpScript. Okay, so now you can see for this particular customer, like, 05001, the SKU 101136 was returned. So let's verify that. So 001, the value is 101136. The next person is 102171. So if I move to the second one, you will see the value changing. So like that, if I cycle through different like customers, I can see each one retrieving the different SKU code. So this is quite useful if you want to, like, debug, like, once you have the logic that you have written and you want to ensure, like, you are getting the right values, you can output this as a debug in your AmpScript code, confirm, like, okay, the value that I'm expecting is the one that is being returned, and then you can use that in your personalization. Okay. Any question on the lookup function? Okay, so let's move. Yeah, sorry, anybody is asking? Okay. Okay, now, so we will look at, like, what if I want to select multiple fields, like, or like multiple rows. So if I want, like, not just one field, if I have, like, the set of fields that I want, and it may span across multiple rows, like, there will be multiple rows that might satisfy that condition, right? In which case you will actually have this function called lookup rows, not lookup. Okay, so lookup rows will give you a row set. Okay. So what it means is, like, a set of rows. Okay, so here it's much more simpler. It will first, you have to give the data extension name. Okay, and then you have to give what is the where clause. I don't have to give you the specific, column name from which to retrieve a field and all that, right? Because ultimately I want all the fields to be returned, which means every row that satisfies this condition, give it to me, right? And I can have multiple conditions paired. Okay, so it will say where region equals north, okay, where email address equal to so and so, okay, where rank equals 3, something like that. I can keep on giving multiple conditions, right? And it will evaluate all of those conditions and give you the rows that satisfy all those conditions. In this particular case, if I say give me retrieve all the rows from this customer DE where region equal to north, it will come and check like I said here, it is not case sensitive. Okay, so because AMP is not case sensitive, irrespective of what the case of north here is, 1, 2, 3, and 4 records will be returned. Okay, so if you want it to be case sensitive, this where clause, there is another function called lookup rows CS. Okay, in which case if I give like north like this, it will only return two rows for me. Okay, so there are function for case sensitivity as well. Okay, so this is pretty useful when you want to get like multiple rows returned back for you. Okay, taking that one more step further. Okay, so now we saw how to get a set of function rows from there. Okay, but what if I want as the last X number of based on some order, if I want to get it back. So this is quite useful for that, like look up ordered rows. Okay, and in this one we have an additional two fields that we will look at. Okay, one is how many rows do you want returned. Okay, for instance, let's say if you are thinking that if my matching criteria will be returning maybe around 50 rows, but I don't want 50 rows. I just want top 5 rows that I want to take from that. Okay, and I want it by a specific date field or a particular field based on some ranking or some order I wanted, maybe the latest value of that particular the top 5 that I want. So those kind of conditions, this is quite useful. Okay, if you leave this as 0 or -1, it will retrieve maximum that you can possibly do in one shot, which is 2000. Okay, so it will take the 2000 rows, up to 2000 rows that satisfies these conditions, it will bring back. Okay, if you specify an actual positive value here, like 1 onwards, it will try to get you that many values back. Okay, and then ranking and here what we are saying is we can specify multiple fields for the order. For instance, it's a comma separated string. If I say rank descending and first name ascending, it will use both of those. The first, it will actually look at, okay, using rank as descending, select the rows. Okay, second, within that, if there is a tie, for instance, if I have 2 rows that have rank as 1, then the next condition to sort them would be first name ascending. Then it will check the first name. Okay, which one, because it is ascending, which one comes first in alphabetic order, it will take like that. Okay, and then again there is a condition that you still need to say. This is just the order and the number of rows. The condition will still apply, which means give me where the condition is equal to north. So as we saw earlier, it will take the 4 records that have north. Okay, then it will actually try to sort them based on the ranking order. So which means because it is descending, 3 will come first. Okay, and then it will come 2 this one here. Okay, then I have 2 records of north with 1. Okay, then because it said the ranking is the first name is ascending, it will take Bob first, second Doug. Okay, so I'll get 4 records back. If I had given this value as 2, I would only get 2 records back, the one with the ranking 3 and one with the ranking 2. Okay, so you can control the output that you want based on using lookup ordered rows as well. Okay, and then along with these lookup rows and lookup ordered rows, you get a row set, right? So just by getting a row set doesn't mean that I get everything that I need to work on. I still need to be able to retrieve that row, okay, and then the field from it, right? So for that, these 3 functions are quite useful. For example, the row will return from a row set the number of the row. Okay, if you specify the number of the row, it will retrieve that particular row for you. For example, let's say the row like we saw in the earlier example, if it was returning 4 rows. Okay, so if I want the first row, I have to do row, the name of that row set which was returned from that lookup function, and the number. So it will be 1. Okay, then if I want the second row, I have to change it to 2. Third row, 3. So now you already got it, what I'm actually intending to say. You use a for loop. This is where you use a for loop and say for I is equal to 1 to 4 or 1 to the row count. So that is where the row count function comes in. How do I know how many rows are there? Because it can be dynamic, right? So if I know that the row count is going to be if I from this value, if I get that value, I can put that is for I is equal to 1 to that particular row count. cycle through the loop and fetch me each row. Okay, and each row, once I get it, okay, I will assign that over here. Okay, and then which is the specific field I want to get, I will have to specify from a particular row. Okay, so if you look at here, very simple example, I am trying to get the different rows from the loyalty members table where email address. So I might have more than one row which has this email address value. Okay, so let's say I got three rows. Okay, and if it is getting more than that, okay, here there is not using a for loop, so just using, so as long as you have some value, I'm coming in, I'm saying retrieve the first row. Okay, so first row is going to be stored in row. Okay, and it says from the row set, retrieve the first row, get that. Okay, and then I'm saying I want the first name and the last name field in that particular row. Okay, so it's a field from the row that you retrieve, the first row that you retrieve, get me the first name, and this for this one, get me the field last name. So that is how you will retrieve those values back. Okay, pretty straightforward. So once you have a row set, you need to use the row function, and if you want to know how many rows you want to cycle through, you can use the row count, and then the field using that, for that particular row, you will use that to retrieve a specific field as well. Okay, okay, so let me try to show you an example for this in a second. So in our previous example, so now we got the SKU code, right, like I showed you earlier. So here, if I go to this particular table, I have the SKU code. Now, what if I want to get some additional data about this product? Okay, so if I want to get the value here, the product, name, I want to get the URLs, the UL, and the price. Okay, so four data, I want to bring back for this particular customer. Okay, how do I do that? So I have to use lookup rows for that, right? So let me show you how to declare that value. Okay, so I'm going to. So what I've done here is I have actually now defined a set of variables where I'm going to store those four values. Okay, so I have prod name, prod price, prod URL, and image URL, right? So those are the four values that I want to return. This 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so I'll declare those values, and now I need some temporary variable to store the rows using the values that I'm returning back, right? So what I've done is I've actually now written used a variable called SQ rows. Okay, SQ rows, and I've actually tried to return, and I want only one row returned. Okay, so in this particular case, because if there is more than one, ideally it will not be there. So if it is not there, I can even use lookup rows as well. But just for showing ordered rows, I just put that here. But if you want to use lookup rows directly and you are assuming there's only going to be one row, you can use that also. Okay, so if I'm using one, then I have to say, okay, what is the ascending or descending order, which field I want to use. I'm using SKU ascending, and then I'm giving SKU, and the value that I need to assign to to SKU for the where clause will be the one that I actually looked from the earlier statement that we saw. We had already checked and retrieved that, right? That is what we did earlier. So when we looked earlier for the first customer, we saw the SKU was 101136, right? So now because we have that value, what we're saying is use that in this lookup ordered rows function, evaluate that, go get the specific rows from the product catalog NTO. So it will go to this particular where, find out where is the row for 101136 and bring that data back. Okay. Once I bring that, and it's saying only bring back one row. Okay. So once I bring back, I'm going to check how many rows were brought back with the row count. So if it is more than 0, then what we are actually going to do is, okay, I only want the first row. Okay, so now I'm going to assign that particular row to this product row variable. Okay, and then once I have that single row that I want to work with, I'm going to now use that to get me each of those four fields. So I've declared already the four variables that I want to get the data in. Okay, so the prod name, I will use that prod row and say, okay, give me the product name from that row, give me the retail price from the row that you retrieved, give me the URL for the product, and give me the thumbnail URL for that, and I'll store that over here. Okay, so now that I have those values, I only have stored it here. I have not outputted it, right? So I need to show that. So let me see if I can show that value here. Okay, so I put the output concatenation value here in using inline. And if I click next, okay. So the first persons, you can see this is the SKU, and then automatically it went and actually took the values from the product table. Okay, continue. It took the values from the product table. So now if I cycle to the next customer, depending upon each different SKU, it will show me the different values for those as well. Okay, you can see the values actually changing. Okay. Okay. So this is how you actually try and retrieve if you want to bring back data from different tables based on each of the subscribers that you have or the customers that you're sending to. Quite useful using lookup and lookup rows and the field functions, row and field functions. Okay. Any questions on these? Okay. All right. We'll quickly go through a few data manipulation functions. So this is in case if you want to enter data, update or delete data into your data extensions, you can use this. There is actually another set similar to like insert data, update data, and using the last part is data, right? So instead of DE, if you're using email, you will always use the word ending with DE. The functions ends with DE. Okay, you cannot use the ones that end with data in email. Okay, the ones that end with data is used only for cloud pages and mobile. Okay, and vice versa, the insert DE, update DE, delete DE, and upsert DE, and all that, you cannot use it in cloud pages and mobile as well. Okay, sorry, I need to change that. Okay. I had a spelling mistake here. Sorry. Yeah. So there is upsert DE as well. So upsert DE is similar to update DE. Okay. The only thing is it will actually insert if it cannot find the for the update clause, you cannot find the record. So insert DE is quite very straightforward. You have to specify the data extension name and then the set of fields along with their values. Like for instance, if I'm inserting into customer DE, I'll give customer ID field. This is the value. First name, this is the value. Last name, so and so. Okay. Update DE, you have to tell okay, first what is the DE name. Okay. Then you have to say how many clauses are you going to give, where I'm going to update the value. So if I give one, it means the next pair, one pair will give you the where clause. Okay. If I give two, the next two pairs will give you the where clause. Okay, and after that is the set of fields that you need to update in that particular data extension. Okay, so it'll vary based on the values that you give here. So in this particular case, I'm saying update the customer DE. Okay, and I'm saying only use one condition here, where customer ID is equal to this. Okay, update the email ID to this new email value. Okay, straightforward. And if you are not able to certain kinds of, this is not the right example, but if you have certain long ones where you're updating something and it is not finding that record, if you're using upsert, it will try to insert that value as well, as long as it has the primary key. If it has primary key and all that, and all the required fields that you need for the data extension, it is available there. It'll insert those values as well. Delete is straightforward. You just provide the customer data extension and the where condition, where customer ID equal to CID, if this value here, if I give, and if I have more conditions for the where clause, I can continue to give that as well. Okay, so if I have multiple conditions, all of those I have to just pass that here. It will go and delete those records from the data extension. Okay. Okay, then coming to a few additional functions that might be useful that you might come across as you go a little more advanced into AMP-script. Whenever you are working with a URL, okay, that you want to show in your HTML, especially in this anchor tag, right? And when you're using ahref equal to, don't try to use the v function there. Okay, you will automatically be tempted to use v or attribute value and then just put the URL. Always use the redirect to. Otherwise, it will not be rendered properly as a URL here. Okay, so this is a specific HTTP function that has been specified for href anchor tags. Okay, treat as content is something very useful. If you have written certain AMP-script code okay, and then you want to or some code that you have in a variable, that's actually storing an AMP script code in there. And in HTML, when you want to render that directly as an AMP script, just by calling that function or that variable, you can use treat as content. Okay, it's not easy to say. I can show you that how what I meant by that. For instance, so let me take out these values here. Okay, so I'm going to have a variable here called content mat. Okay, and in content mat, I'm actually going to store a string. Okay, this is an AMP. This is actually if I store it outside as a separate one, if I just do this one, if I publish it in HTML, it'll render that as an actual AMP script code, and it'll add the two values and give me the output 4, right? But because I put it in the string, it will be storing exactly as a string in this variable. Okay, now to see the output. Okay, the first one I am saying, okay, show me the static value of that particular variable. So what will happen is it will output the value as is without rendering it as AMP script. Okay, the second one I am telling treat as content and that variable. So what will happen is it will actually go and say I am expecting this variable to contain AMP script code, evaluate that and show me that. Okay, so let's see the values here. So as you can see, the first one, because it was stored as a string, it will show the string as is. Okay, the second one, because I said treat as content, automatically it evaluated the transcript code and then it gave me the value for that. Okay, not always you will use this, but pretty useful to know that there is a function out there like this. So sometimes if you are getting some code that you want to write, keep it in a data extension, bring it in, and you want to run that code for some scenario, this is also useful. Okay,
Even it will help in optimizing the code thing as well, if we don't want any extra evaluation.
possible. Yeah, there are some scenarios that you can use it for, but yeah, use carefully. Not everything you would want to restrict as such, because then people can the thing is you're opening the door for people to push in code through that. Okay, so be very careful. If any that data gets overwritten with any additional code, then automatically this will render that.
Yeah.
Okay, so then there is something called content block by ID or content block by key. So in email we have content blocks, right? So if I go here, let me go back. So these are all content blocks. Okay, so wait, let me see if I have a content block here. Yeah. So this is actually a content block that we had actually built. So if I want to see the content block, you can see an ID and then the customer key. So there is actually two IDs for that, a content block by ID or a content block by key. So if I want to bring that particular content block, for the, or actually this is the content one. Wait, this is the email. Let me try to find the actual content block. It's probably in shared. Yeah, so any content block that I want to use, if I use this one, so you will see an ID here, and then you will see a key here. So if I want to bring in a specific content block into my email, just by calling that ID or a key, this function is quite useful. Okay? You just have to go to your AMP script code, and then just by inline, you just call by content block by that particular ID or that key value that you saw. Okay, so if it's key, you have to ensure it is a string. If it is ID, it is the numeric value that you saw in the ID field. Okay, and automatically it will render that bring in that content block that you have saved separately. So it is useful when you want to share certain content that has already been created and kept in, you want to use it across multiple emails, you just want to call it inline, you can just call it, bring it in as well. Okay, now raise error is something that you would use for exception handling, but not in our true sense, like how you use try catch statement and all that. Okay, so try catch is something that you will use in Java, and even in server side JavaScript you will use it. In IAMScript, there is no specific like that. There is no good exception handling statements. The closest that you can get to is this raise error. Okay, but you have to use this very carefully. This one, it is not meant for like anytime there's an error, okay, just stop, and stop sending to people, or what will happen is it will automatically it will still count as a send. Okay, for example, let's say you are expecting, okay, I'm getting set like sending to a set of 500,000 subscribers. Okay, but if I'm expecting okay, maybe around half of them will not have certain value, that's okay. If it is not having, I just want to raise an error for those subscribers and just go on. But what will happen is each of those say people that you are expecting that will not get that value, if it's very high, it will still get counted as your as a send, even if it is not sent to them. Okay, so you have to be very, very careful on that. So don't use, wherever possible, try to segment the customers based on using queries or filters or whatever it is, so that they don't get added to your send. Like if you already can identify some, but based on some value, or use a conditional checking or something that that it does not get sent to them. This raise error you should use when you where is that very rare chances of some error happening because of some condition. Very rarely it might happen. If that is the case, then that particular subscriber should not get that email. Then you can say raise this error. Okay, and then this is the error for that particular customer. And then what you can do is you can actually specify another value with that. Okay, if you say by default, if you just give only the raise error, it will immediately stop the send. Okay, it will not send any more emails after that. Okay, but then if you continue as you say, okay, skip it for this particular customer and then go ahead with the additional the customers that that are still in the send queue, it will continue that. Okay, and anytime it encounters an error for a particular customer, it will raise the error for that. Okay, so this is useful for that, those kind of conditions. Okay, few common mistakes that we come across, especially when you start AMScript development, and I am guilty of getting few of these when I started as well. One is definitely where you don't have the matching parenthesis. So this one, I would say Visual Studio is very good. Okay, it will show you each of the parentheses correctly, each of the loops it will actually show you. So if there is any problem, if I click on a particular one, it will show you the matching braces, everything. So as far as possible, try to use this specific uh, the editor, so that's quite useful. And then you move it to the marketing cloud interface for that. Okay, referring to an attribute than a variable. So whenever we are actually using the lookup functions or any functions for that matter, if you use the in the variable, we are quite used to just putting the variable name. Okay, we might forget to put the @ symbol. Okay, so if you are not using the @ symbol, and if there is actually an attribute with that value, then automatically it will evaluate to that value. So you might have meant @id. Okay, but if you put id, and if there is an actual id field, that is the value that will get evaluated, and you will not even know there is an error. Okay, so be very, very careful on how you use a variables versus thing. So it is not always quite easy to debug AMScript. So sometimes it's very painful. You have to sit and do one by one debug and output each line and figure out. Okay, curly quotes, this is one very big thing that I have come across, and I've been it's haunting me quite a lot. So whenever you use Word or any of these rich text editors, the single quote, the double quote that you have is like curly quote. Okay, like these ones. If you use that, it'll be a problem. It should be the straight double quotes. Okay, so if you use this way, you will not even know. You will actually paste this into your uh, AMScript. Let me see here. So if I go back to the AMScript content, oh, I need to filter this out. So you'll see most of the quotes, the single, the double quotes that we have used is all straight. But if you actually get somewhere from a Word document, or like if you try to get different value, like like these curly codes, if you get it, it will start showing you error, and you will be like figuring it out for a long time. What is the error? It doesn't tell you exactly. It is that it is those codes. So be very, very careful. Like when you say that this attribute, there is some problem with the attribute, like that only it will tell you. Okay. And then the conditional evaluation, like the when you have syntax where you want to evaluate, so operators where you have where this are supposed to be double equal to, like if you're trying to equate, okay, you probably put the assignment value, and where you want to actually assign, you put the double one as well. So don't confuse the two. Use the assignment correctly and the comparison one correctly as well. Okay. Okay, a few other best practices that we would look at is like whenever we try to use HTML blocks, like I showed you earlier, now we were the one that we were actually using so far was an actual HTML block that I put in. You can, it's easy to edit and try it out for your AMP script. Majority of the AMP script code, as far as possible, try to put it at the top, so it's easy to as soon as you come in, it's easy to maintain. See, always use documentation, try to document and comment your specific code properly, so what each set of functions, because sooner or later the number of functions and things that you'll add in will become large. Okay, and then at a particular point in time, it's very hard for you to come back and see, okay, what was this for, just like any other normal code. But AMP script is very tough to debug. That's why it's always try to keep everything documented properly. Okay. It always says limit the number of lookups, because there is always a performance hit. Don't try and try to bring 5-6 data extensions here, there, go back and forth, especially if there's a large number of sends. Maybe one lookup or two lookups maximum, wherever possible. If you want to bring the data in through queries and segment it and keep it in a data extension, do it that, and then get the data from that. Okay. Only resort to lookups if you're not able to do some of that, and on the fly you want to get some data from a specific data extension. Okay, if you are using more than one field, you want to retrieve, use the row set, like I said, lookup rows or lookup ordered rows. Always validate external content. If you're actually getting any external content or anything that you bring in, always ensure if you're bringing data in from data extensions, ensure you check for the value, it is empty, or is null, all those things you might want to always check before you actually go ahead and then put that into your email logic. Okay. Erase error, like I said, use very sparingly, and then test with data that is almost similar to your live sendable data. And then here is one tip that actually I got from Adam. He's one of the AMP script gurus. So he used to say, if you want, you can actually set a variable as debug equal to 0. Okay, and then at the top of your AMP script, and then somewhere in your code, wherever you want to output any values for debugging, you put in this if condition there, if debug equal to 1, then you can do the output for those variables that you're trying to set at that particular area. Okay, so at multiple places in your AMP script, you can keep on doing this. So the good thing is you won't have to remove this later. Okay, anytime you want to debug, you just set the top variable to 1. Automatically, wherever you put debug statements, it will get debug, and you will get the output. Okay, so that's quite useful. And when you wanted to send it to for the proper send, you would just make it back to 0. It will be good for production. Okay, so let me show you one of these scenarios that we done. So some of the things that we did recently, what we just went through just now, I'll show you in actual live email scenario. Let me just bring up the example. So like I said, NTO abandoned cart is a useful scenario, right? Like I mentioned over here, right? So if I wanted to see how that actual email might look like if a marketer was supposed to do it. So if I go into AMP script basics here, I might have a email for demo. So this is an empty email. Okay, so I will have a template that will be given, that I want to use for sending out. So this is a template that might be given to us, and then I want to now customize this with the data from the data extensions. So this is where AMP script will come into play, right? So if I click on this edit for this content, so in this template, I need to go and edit each of these, and I need to replace the first name. I need to get the product description for the people. The image should change based on the person, etc. Right? Also I need there is something for future events that might be coming in that I want to show. So this is, each of these is a different content block. like so it's like built in, like if I want to pull in anything that has content, I want to bring it in, I can just pull that in and show the values. Now I will show you, like there's something where we have already done it. So this one, we have the same template. Once we've written the code, it will look like this. Okay? So you'll see a lot of stuff down here. Okay, so if I go click on edit, okay, so if I click here, it will show you all the code. Okay, the top you'll see all the AMP script code. Now to see it in a better one, I'll show it over here. So this is what that code looks like. Okay, so the AMP script code, the top part that you saw here, it's all here. So when you're actually trying to do scenarios for this particular a scenario like this, when I want to go and add that, don't do everything in one shot. Okay, don't write all the code like that you can think of, all the logic, copy paste it. Then the problem is, if there is a mistake somewhere, there is a problem, it's very hard for you to debug. Start slowly. You will start probably first with the first name. Okay, maybe just this one you will set. Okay, then you will test it out and preview it. Okay, then what you will probably look at is okay, I will set a debug statement and keep it ready, so if I want to output something, I can output it. Okay, then maybe I will look at okay, maybe first let me get this queue. So then I will get this queue value. Okay, then I will add that to the email, I will test it out. Okay, and then I'll see output this queue and see if I'm able to get it. Okay, then I will actually see, give default values, so this prod name, prod price and all that, I will actually put it, and I'll put some default values, and then in the email I need to go and set those values, right? So just by declaring it over here, I will not get it. So inside the email, inside the HTML, I have to go and find out where those variables are supposed to be referred. So you will see here, the first name is here, right? So it has to, I change that to v of f name. Okay, and then I need to here, wherever I see the prod name, prod price, I need to go set those values. So the variables that I've actually declared, I need to go and set those inline values over here. And then using the default values that I've set, I will test it first without even doing a lookup. Okay, so that is how you need to test. So if you have if you have made any problem in using those inline or any of these default variables, immediately you will know before you even started retrieving the actual data from the data extension. So go piece by piece. Then once you have set the default values and you are able to see these default values in the image properly, then you will start doing, okay, now let me try to get the lookup ordered rows. Okay, and maybe I will try to get one row. Okay, probably if there is multiple rows that you're trying to bring, maybe during one row. Okay, and then try if that works. If it works, great. Now if you want to do it as loop, you can do it as a loop. So there are ways that you will actually do it, and then if you want to debug it out, during that, you just keep on adding those output statements here. So one thing that probably I forgot to tell you, that there is a statement called output. This output statement is in the block, you cannot use the v value, right? But during within a block, if you want to output some value, you should use this function called output. Okay, and output only works inside if it has a function inside it. If you simply say output a value string, it will not give you the value. Okay, so it will only return and output a text into the window when you use a function within that, which is returning some text value. So that's why I use this concat along with that. Okay, so I'm saying concat customer ID equal to some variable, so if I want to see this q value, I will say concat q equal to this, and because it is a joint function, automatically it's a function being called, I can use that output variable over here. If it was an inline, I will say the v value, right? I can actually show v of that sq, I can show the value. But inside a block, if I want to output for debug, this is how I would do it. Okay, and as you saw, if I set this to 0, meaning then this is, it will not output this. But if I set it to 1, automatically the debug statement will actually show me the output as well. Okay, so when I actually render this, okay, now you say I have 6 customers here, right? So earlier you saw the data, for each of those customers, they had the specific these are the SKUs, and each of the SKUs had values here. So now you will see the output of using that in an email. As I cycle, you will see each person's name, their specific product that they had actually kept in. You can see it all cycling correctly. Okay, so that is the beauty of being able to customize this. Okay, so like so earlier we only saw the bare data, right? But then when you add that into a proper email template, you will be able to so every person, when they receive their email, it will be specific to their something that they have actually purchased or something that they have actually worked with or brought from your site or saved in your site. Okay, so this is what they will get. You can even customize in such a way that if I click on it, it will actually go to that specific page. So there is a URLs also linked to it, okay, so there's all that you can click on that. And then there is one more over here, so there was something here for the upcoming sales. So this is also another content block. Okay, so this one has nothing to do with any of these tables. Okay, so if I have a table where I'm having all my future events that are coming in, and I want to show that to customers, and that is also through AMP script, it is going because it can dynamically change because events keep getting added, right? So automatically what is happening is this particular content block is going and pulling data from various from that event data extension and then bringing it to this one here. Okay, so this is quite useful when if you're actually editing it as a content block. For example, let me show you the content block. So this is what the content block will look like when it is bare, okay, as a template, right? But then if I added AMP script in it, okay, this is the code in that. So now the good thing is any person who has an email, any marketer who has an email and wants to use this particular content block to show their upcoming events, they just can pull it into an email very easily. They don't even have to write the AMP script code. So it's very useful if you store AMP script in your existing content block, that is not dependent on the email data extension. Okay, and they can just pull it into a specific email that they want. Okay, so if I go to this particular empty email, if I click on edit, okay, just if I have a content block like a space here that I want to pull it in, and I have the one that I'm scripts, I just pull it in. Okay, and if I go and just preview it, it will actually show me that value here. See, automatically it comes up. I didn't even have to do any coding because it has already been coded. That AMP script has been already coded and kept in that particular content block. So keeping it stored in content blocks with the code, unless and until make sure it has nothing to do with the specific subscriber. Like if you haven't, you can use that, but it should not be dependent on different data extensions. If it's as long as it is all going always go to the specific data extension and getting that value for you from that. Okay, you can keep on using that from your content block and bring that in. Okay, quite useful. Okay, I think we have covered most of the topics that I wanted to cover. So there is one main final challenge that I want to tell you guys before we wrap up the session. So there is a site called howtosfmc.com. Some of you might be familiar with it. So they have a specific challenge going on right now for AMP script. Okay, so anybody can take part. There is nobody I'm junior, I'm somewhere. You have already learned the basics of AMP script. By today you know how to do it. You should be able to go and refer to the functions. Quite very simple. All they're asking you is go and refer to this link, how to sfmc.com. You can see the May AMP script challenge in there. What they will have is there is a song called the Baby Shark by Ping Fong. It has a set of characters in the lyrics, or actually the lyrics will around 1096 characters are there, right? They want you to output that using AMP script with the least number of characters. Okay, so there are 3 categories that they have. For our challenge, I am basically opening it out to the people in this particular meeting today. So I have right now I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 folks. So 8 of you are can actually go and enter into this competition. Okay, you can submit it to them as well. Okay, there is 3, and you can say which category you want. You can send all 3 categories. But for our case, for this particular B2C challenge, you need to send me the entry for efficiency, meaning the lowest number of characters that you can use to output it. Okay, send it to this particular ID, the Cyberjia my B2C trailblazers.cgl. So I'll just copy paste in the chat so you can get it. And then ensure it is if there is a tie, I will actually look at who's actually sent it first. So don't wait till the last minute to send it. So May 29th is the last date, which is next Friday. So before then, please go ahead, and then if you wish to it, and if you win, the person who wins get a certification voucher. I think you can use it for $400 as well, so it's a good deal. So make sure you actually grab that if possible. Okay. There is actually rules on that website, there is a character count tool and all that, so use that, because I'll be using that to evaluate as well. So whatever rules that the How to SFMC has provided, you have to follow that. Okay, the lyrics specifically where what to use and all that 1096 one, it is already mentioned on that site. Okay, and the category that I will be looking at is efficiency. There is other two categories are also there in their site, but not those two. Okay, I'm not looking at that. Only the lowest number of characters. And you can use any AMP function within AMP to get it, other than what they have mentioned on How to SFMC. Okay. Okay. Any last minute questions before I wrap up? So let me copy paste the URL for you guys. Give me 1 second. Everybody still there?
Yeah, Shiv.
Okay. Why am I not able to see chat? Oh, okay. 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 Did everybody get the email ID and the link? Oh, sorry. It actually went to the wrong person. Wait. It went to Manik alone. Okay, I've actually shared it now. Hopefully everybody has it. So please save it now before we finish. Okay, we are not done. So there is one more thing that I want to take a few minutes. We have a quiz as well. So I hope everybody is okay to play.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me share.